with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital.
漢検1級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Mord är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squad, and that also means elephant. Okay.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, ça, c'est ça, ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça, sol qui sa, che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux. Surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Fun. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile.
Sì, sì, ecco, la gente, è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo, io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi, dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, but sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or Waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, sa chambre chassée, ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt.
Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idiomas, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más.
Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten 2 tschechische Schwalben. 3 tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en 3 tristes trastos.
Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cocine tapon. Poso milao. Pote. When is it? Proteine. Protoculo. In the designated chicken eating area, obviously.
Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages, and this is the stream where we're going to be playing some Kanji de GO, Rashugo, and talking all about kanji and language stuff. さて、日本語に移りますけれども、この前も、指摘しましたけれども、漢字を覚えようとするときには、例文を書くのも役立つもんですよね。でも、どうってことない、ありきたりな学用例文は、早く書けるもんですけれども、早く忘れるもんでもありますので、ものを言う面白い例文を書く方がずっと効率的だと私は考えます。今日学んだ漢検1級と準1級の漢字で書いた例文を例に挙げましょうね。饒舌な継承は、里そうな眼差しで、さてと 相手の言葉を報い始めた。安なんぞで、クジラを太平洋から突き差し取ったというお話はあまりにも行動無形だったので、固形参照と聞き入ってしまいましたよ。それでも、俺の懐から3両を突き差し取ったその手はちゃんと見ましたぞ。よくご覧になれば、漢検1級配当内にあたる漢字、情、つまり豊かの情、敬教という君とも読める漢字、山をかぶってる疑いの漢字ですね。それは高いとか里いとか賢いとかそういうような概念を指している漢字も、そして安とさてなどをと読める漢字など、そして漢検2級にあたる行動無形固形参照と俺もう入ってるもんですよね。Now, look, I'm going to switch you back over to English. So, this is about example sentences, which are a good way to remember things. This is an example of an example sentence that I wrote with the Kanken Ikkyu kanji that I was learning today. It also has some Kanken Ikkyu 4-character expressions and kanji in it. And the translation goes, right, the voluble minister began to retort with a shrewd look in his eyes. Your story of fishing a whale from the Pacific with a mere spear was so asinine that it drove me to distraction. Nonetheless, I did see your hand fishing 3 ryo from my pocket. And so you have jo, as in josetsu, which means like voluble, someone who's talkative, and Keigyo, which is like a title of nobility. It can also be read kimi. And Gyoku, Gi, Satoi, Takai, this kanji that is the utagao, but with a mountain on top of it. And a kanji that has an interesting dual role. It can be sate, which is, a way of starting a sentence, like when you're changing the subject or something like that. Or it can also mean like a spear or a harpoon for fishing. It can be both of those things, which is, just wild. Like, how are we gonna... This kanji means both of those things. Like, I'm not even sure how we end up with that. But it's interesting. And then the character for ore, as in a way of saying I, which is a kanken nikyu kanji. And like a lot of Kanken Nikyu kanji, it's one that you see a lot. So, that is the difference between Kanken level 1 and level 2. Level 2 is full of stuff that you will have seen if you just read a lot. And level 1 is full of stuff that you will have seen if you read really, really old texts a lot. Some of them you'll practically never see. Like sate written as kanji. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And I certainly did not realize that the kanji can also be read yasu and mean a spear for fishing. And then koto muke, which is like one of many posh ways of calling bullshit in Japanese. It's a kanji 4-character expression that means like asinine, completely baseless, implausible. And Kokei Sansho, which is a really cool one, I think, because it literally means Tiger Valley, 3 laughs. And it comes from a koji, Chinese chronicles. There was this monk who had apparently never crossed Koki, the Tiger Valley. And one day he was having a philosophical discussion with 2 other people, and he got so into it that he unexpectedly crossed the Tiger Valley and only realized this because he heard a tiger growling, and then the three of them laughed about this. And what this expression means is that somebody gets so into something that they forget everything else. Koke sansho. I mean, you find great stuff. This Yoji Jukugo, if you are studying Japanese, study those. You find just amazing stuff in there. They're fascinating, and it's a way to spice up your speech. Because it's all very literary. Okay, and with that, we're going to switch over, hey Riveroon, and play some Kanji de GO. Once I get that window set all set up. Let's see. Yeah, exactly, and that is what it means. It's like you get so into something that you don't notice anything else going on around you. Like, for example, that you're crossing a valley full of fucking tigers. I mean, that is, if you remember, there's an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. It gets memes these days, which is fitting, because it is about about these aliens who essentially communicate with verbal memes. And that's what a lot of these Yoji Jukugo, these 4-character expressions, are. Like, if you look them up in a good Japanese dictionary, you will find the sources of them. They always have, like, sources, practically. And the sources are always, like, some ancient Chinese chronicle or something like that. I mean, there are exceptions. There's one that turns out it came from baseball commentary. It's probably one of the most recent ones to be accepted into the lexicon. 中断データがあるね。Yosh. Oh, I've got my keyboard set up wrong. I actually need my keyboard for this game. So... Yosh. This is level 5. This is where we left off yesterday. This is where it gets real hard. Kagami? じゃないだろう。ああ、昨日も見たんだぜ。あ、初。知らんえ。これ知らんよ。見づら。全く、見づら。つら。だから、completely unorthodox reading there. Retry. Give up. 動物か。なんだこの字。ネズミでしょね。そうけん。タヌキじゃないね。入れ替え。ハイエナ。猫目。ハイエナ。これ知ってるくせに。じゃあ違う うだろう。モデル問うという読み方もありますけれどもね。でもこれは何だった？弔う、弔う、大人う。弔うともいいとも読めますね。Okay, I had no idea that you could also read it that way. きっか経過吉花じゃないだろ。神頭にきつ。なんだこれ。渦、古代草木の渦かそれ。上の方の字は初めて見ましたよ。しらOkay, what? シャム猫。シャム。Okay. Retry. Yeah. Level 5 is when you get like kanji that nobody uses anymore. That you will hardly ever. This is where you get Kanji de GO stuff. I mean, actually, 4 already has Kanji de GO. 5 already has stuff that includes at least some things that. Shuji Setto. Toritsugi Setto. 入れ替え。しどろもどろ。確かに。こいつ何と読めるな。知らん。見たことねえよこれ。Never seen this one before. 一体何なんだ。タオサ、農業を監督する役人。タオサ、初耳だよこの言葉。なんか平安時代のやつだろ。Okay, getting off to a great start here. 野菜の帯じゃないだろ。角、布、知らん。これも初めて見たもんだ。野菜の鳥か。で、ヘタか。Wow, I'm not lasting long on this one. 離島州、離島州、離島州、離島数。What was that? I was apparently 加藤州か。平安時代だ。 またもよ平安時代のやつ。平安時代の読み方。本当に。Yeah. A lot of these readings, you get a lot of unusual readings from like 1,000 years ago when you get to this level. And that's what that was. That's Heian Jidai. Akindo. Yosh! Enmo. Kinbo. Iregae. Bekibo. Usuki. Usushi. Uruki. Yasuki. Osuki. Wasuki. Nesuki. Risuki. Asuki. 知らねえ。すすき。奇跡。奇跡。寄せ目。気象宿り白段目白段下の多年草宿り木 Like those first two characters there are often read kisei, which means parasitic. But 宿り初めて見たんですよ。はやぶさあらとりあらどり確かに数日前に覚えた漢検1級配当内にあたる漢字なんです。歌手日酒果汁入れ替えウォッカ That's vodka ウォッカタハ聞いたよね、はい、パプロン。ようこそいらっしゃいませ。なんだこれ、竹とかじゃないだろ。2文字指定のやつ。なぎ。Hey Badger, how you doing? ヒノキ目巻きかの上六。なぎリトライとったりよーしまんじゅうかパパイヤロシアの陽明酒鉄匠鉄層鉄水下の方の字は初めて見ましたよ。鉄 水じゃないだろう。なんだよこの字。お歯黒。歯を黒く染めるのに用いる液。なんで歯を黒く染めたくなるんだ。お歯黒。読み方、意味は読み方で。よし。うわー、見たことねえよこの字。ささまたまだ歌おたネタずた知らねえよこれ。持ち上げる。黒く染めて歯抜けを表現する。舞台の舞台用にですね。つまりそうですか。かがおがなんだよこれ。確かにいがみ青だった。よすたい。よすたもぐま何かとクマだけど。こもだじゃねえ。動物はいつもコアラ。それはコアラですか。当て字。確かにそうでしたね。それを検索したんですか。それとも覚えてらしたんですか。それそのthat was koala. That see, they do. Like 100 years ago, up until like 1945 or so, they would often in Japan put kanji to things. Whoa,ブルガリアじゃないだろ。イギリス。それがイギリスの。そうですか。集中慶中教授なんだこれ。漢字で GO をずっとやってるといろんな変な当て字が中んずくですか。中んずく。よし。残念。もじかんもちさいもよさいもんじま一番下の5の字は初めて見ましたよ。当て字は独特だから、本当に当て字は暗記でしか覚えないんですよね。 だって、いつもなんか変な読みも混じってるんですから。便試験。残念と肛門実鉄の一人、岩塩にかけ、同じく実鉄便試験とかけ出され。古典落語で役立つ晴らす何か漏らすじゃないだろ。散らす荒らす怒らす目をいかめしくする。Wow, yeah, you get. Yes, we're retrying. It's you get some wild stuff in here. Ikinui. Se. 涼しい外国の地名セボラセホロなんだサンパウロそれはサンパウロだってサンパウロドブラジルそんなことパオロいや中国語でパオロと意味より読みより音より意味というような当て字ですよねそれ Okay yeah that's literally St. Paul that is if I remember correctly how it is still written in Chineseなんだこれコム知らんああそうですか救世主国意味ではハサミカニのハサミ animals こび騒ぎ効果消化じゃないだろコーヒー国家ああ知らんなんだこれぼや小さな火事に対し人が集まるなどの騒ぎになることぼや騒ぎOK いやむずいやつばっかりだ何かイノシシ哺乳 四宿。中東。それはなんかそうですか。リットル当て字だろう。メートルとか。引き出しだった。そう言うと確かに引き出しとして何百回も見てるんですよこれ。いつも振り仮名つきだけど。クイムよじもじふじ。Oh, that was actually a little bit embarrassing, that last one, because I have seen that a million times. But it's in like books and things like that. It means drawer. Buchi. 食いぶち、食べ物を買うための食いぶち。ありがとう。大鳥か。縁枚などで使われますね。そうですか。目取りじゃないだろ。おつツバメですか。I'm getting some help here. こもりドール、こもりじゃない。マカル、マカルだった。確かに。チマンセチマンセチマンセシマンセスマンセコマンセコマンセ出て見てるだけビマンセ医学用語で病変が比較的均等に広がっている状態。ビマンセsubchronic。初めて見たよこれ。じゃないだろうけど。Okay, another kanji I have literally never seen before, and I've seen lots of kanji. What is it? 物売り。億劫で気が進まない。面倒である。物売り。はい、リトライ。ないがし。円珠。豆目。とどるじゃないだろ。何か脅しをかけるような意味。
やばらまきじゃない。踊ろ。輝く。輝くか。まばゆいほどきらめく。キラキラ光る。輝く。Okay, I was barking up the wrong tree there. コマケマケバギバコバロバ。あ、ロバだった。ロバの技。剣道とも、という、熟語もありますよね。とか、入れ替え。ちんぷんかん。ちんぷんかんぷんの一部。小麦。確かに見たことあるんですよ。麦に関するもんですけど。小麦？ふすまだった。確かに、2週前に、覚えるつもりでいた、漢検1級の漢字です。ふすま、小麦をひいて、ふにするときに残る、火のくず。ふすまだ。ビズラ。覚えたぞ。なんだこれ。めばゆもばよしら動物だから超むずい。メバチマグロありがとうございます。マグロですか。魚にあり。レンカじゃない。辛さを収録総録素録シュムソムなんだこれ。すごろくですか。サイコロよ。そうですか。神魚じゃないだろう。なんだこれ。信仰強い魚じゃないだろう。はたはた筋決めはたはたかの魚。そうですか。秋田県の県魚とされている県魚。そうですか。 ケンケンもあり。OK。また、その魚とか動物の名称はいつも途方に暮れてしまいますよ。Animal ね、The Animal か。野良馬ですか？ヒレ馬、黒馬、インポート、いや輸入じゃなく送り入れとか、輸入という読み方は知ってますけれども、でもその輸入、外国の産物や技術などを自国に取り入れること、輸入ですか？イサムとか、確かに何でしたっけこれ。確かにイサムとか勇ましいじゃないだろ。なんだ、シュートだった。くそ。よし、あと一息。早慶、早教、まんじゅう、なんか職員のことですか？OK。おしくらまんじゅう。そうですか。Okay, I'm going to go on a quick bio break. I will be back in just a few minutes. これから休憩に入りますので、数分後にまた伺いますので、少々お待ちください。Quick bio break. Back in a moo.
Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital
漢検1級の先というのは本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig.
And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back.
Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is skor, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, ça, c'est ça, ça, che c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça, sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nei. Nei. Man. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bangba, okay, Bangbas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi.
Tadaima, omachido-sama deshita. I am back. That last one about the manju reminded me of an old rakugo, like sort of Japanese comedy, and it's called manju kowai. Manju phobia. Manju is like a kind of dumpling kind of thing. Like a sweet dumpling, like with, what is it normally filled with? It's made of buckwheat flour, and then there's, anko, which, what is anko in English anyway? Yeah, sometimes you fill it with tea, sometimes you fill it with all kinds of things. And so the story is, okay, you got these guys, and they're sitting around, and somehow they get to talking about their phobias. And so the first one is like, you know, what really gets me is like spiders. I can't deal with spiders. And then the next one's like, oh well, I hear you, but I mean, my thing is sharks. I've had a thing about sharks since I was a kid, and they keep going around, and they're all,
And then the next guy, and then the last guy, they're like, why aren't you talking? Why haven't you said anything? He was so silent this whole time. And he goes, no, I'm not going to tell you. You'll just fucking laugh. And they go, no, you gotta tell us now. You gotta tell us. 人を刺激しといて、黙り込みやがって、ずるいよな、お前。And he's, okay, fuck it. I'll tell you. I'm scared of manju. You know, like, what the fuck? How are you scared of manju? It's a fucking sweet. And he's like, well, phobias aren't rational, are they? I'm scared of manju. And so the guys are like, yeah, okay, we gotta take the piss out of him. And so they came up with this plan. While he's sleeping, they go out and buy a bunch of manju. And they surround him with it. And they put him all over his bed, you know, to freak him out. And he wakes up. And he looks around and he's like, oh shit, I'm surrounded by manju. And everybody's looking very expectantly because they want the big reaction. They want to see him freak out. And so he just grabs one. Holy shit. Wow. What kind of bear was it? So so he just grabs a manju and he starts eating it. And the guys are like, wait, what's going on here? And the guy with the manju, he's like, you know what would really scare the shit out of me right now is a nice cup of tea. Go with these. Manju kowai. という古典落語。どうも塩分の多いどっちよしなんだこれ見たことねえよじゃないだろじゃない知らん諦める講座見たことねえよこれシーラ十分に実っていないもみミヨサか出直That sounds like it would be terrifying. シートが知らねえよこれ見たことが確かにあるのに全く思い浮かばねえんだ How did this happen? はい身に帯びたなめし川と弓づる転じて性格上の欠点たしなめ改めようとすること威厳の愛Housekeeping camp in Yosemite Oh, yeah, not all that much shelter if a bear really wants to see you.
OK。これね、モード選択。あと一生ですね。確かに。おびき出す。確かに。例中のオプションを設定できます。カジュアル、バラエティ。こんにちは、たこ焼きさん。これはバラエティです。経路、簡単だよ、簡単。健やかだった。茶色。Jesus. Was she hurt? Michibi. Funiki. Bonus。共通して入る言葉をひらがなで答えよう。得意である社会学を将来を見据え聞ける。くそ。投資、先行投資。くそ。元気。じゃないだろ。けなげ。いや。滴る。Yeah, a lot of stuff comes from if you've read a lot of Kanban or you've studied Chinese, then you do have an advantage in the more esoteric kanji. Like, that is just a normal Chinese word, but it is a less common way of writing uhi in Japanese. Coffee. Coffee. Hai, ritorai. Also, kantan. Broadcast. Yeah, pretty much all of them do. Kanshu. Oh, Jesus. 小高い。小高。甲高。甲高いだった。God, that sounds absolutely terrifying. 非承知。市販。それは無断。天才。ああ、天才。答えを見ると語彙力、飲食、荷物、いやな、せんべいだった。植物 Well, nice of the bear to eventually leave, I suppose. Jesus, that is a hell of a thing to experience. Matsue. Akebono. Yojijukugo. Okay. I never tried this before. This is some Yojijukugo. The 4 character expressions. Customize Nangi. Yoshi. Jiyu Jizai. Seisei Doudou. Yeah, I can imagine. Ikudo. I can imagine that it's one of those stories that is. You don't hear that very often. Shunjitsu wa. Koharu Biyori. Kunyomi no Yojinguo. Yeah. Kido Suiraku. Shido Suiraku. Kido Keiraku. Kido Kido Airaku. Yoshi. Gojiを含むものをひらがなで答えよう。U2 の引かない性格の方言、助言をしたか。念仏だった。That is very true, Riveroon. Teren Tekura. またもや訓読みの報復。 勝一遊一よ一遊じゃない人や人いどういう一石一朝一夕傾向九州九州九州傾向牛語大きな組織の下でつくより下につくよりも and also respect good shelter design, I would imagine. Sebi udoku? Ah, 知らん。何ですかこれ甘読み晴れ持ち甘読みとか成功うどく収集自適の生活を送ることの例え Well, you have moles. And apparently there are invasive raccoons. I know there are in Germany. And you should know, raccoons should not be fucked with. They have serious scrap and those claws are razor sharp. 3355簡単だよ見たことねえけどすぐに分かったすぐ心身幾度 I always thought the idea was you hang it up high in a tree. 5字を含むものよし軽率にはなんとなく気軽に耳合いで持ち軽率Raccoons are very clever. I mean, I like raccoons, but I stay well back from them. 浴場引火繊維水化繊維引火先生In Prague, you can't go anywhere without seeing a cartoon character called Kurteček, the little mole. Goka Shunran. Kinran. ゆいゆいだくだくゆいゆいじゃくじゃくゆいゆいちゃくちゃくゆいゆいじゃじゃ知らん。ゆいゆい木で解説を見ることが人の言いなりなりWell, in North Korea, it's still called Chesko. Hey, やった。なんだこれ。They are amongst the most likely to use the local name. Like, Spain is España, for example. Hungary is Magyar. Okay. Koi 맞았어? 이 다크다크 다크다크の方は合ってたんですよね。Okay, in any case, it is time to change gears and look at some videos. Let's see what we've got. Okay, I'm kind of curious about this. This is another Psycholingo video. This is called Get Fluent Fast, a critical look at an accelerated language learning course. That sounds interesting. Plus, I like Psycholingo's vibe.
How long it would take to learn.
So we're going to check this out. Copiar URL del video. Okay, and here I'm going to just drop that link in chat for anyone who wants to see the whole thing.
If you go online, there are plenty of things where people suggest you can do it very quickly. Today we're going to be looking at someone who says they did it in 187 days, and they make the...
1/8, interesting choice of number there. That seems so... It's like, it sounds random, but it really isn't.
claim that you can do it too in 200 days. and I have a lot to say about it, so let's get started. The first thing I want to mention is if you go on YouTube, people will have videos that they make, usually with like clickbait type of titles. And so I just went to YouTube and typed in "Get Fluent in 30 Days." My video pops up because obviously I'm on my own channel, so it's going to show me first. But generally speaking, how to get fluent in 30 days, how I got fluent in Spanish in 44 days.
All of this
one
sounds...
exercise made me fluent in French in 30 days. You know, like, they have these things, how I got fluent in French in 30 days. How I got fluent in Spanish in 30 days.
There are tons of these.
This is becoming like a trend. Well,
and let me just say, of all the things where skepticism is, in the sort of in language YouTube, where skepticism is warranted, claims about fluency within a relatively short time frame are a good one to be very skeptical about, because either the term fluency is doing a lot of work, or it's just nonsense.
Been a trend for a while, but anyone who's learned a language knows it takes a long time, and part of the draw of these videos is people want a fast solution to a big problem.
Yeah.
The sad thing is we know that learning takes time.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of studies.
I mean, the only way any of that even begins to make sense is if you're talking about languages that are so closely related that you can just rely very heavily on the one in order to learn the other. Like, I mean, there you can kind of... there it might... there is some plausibility. But for the most part, like, nah.
That show this. Even people who are in immersed environments, even with comprehensible input, which is a huge thing people talk about as well, it still takes a long time for them to gain fluency. So in English, for example, if you look at like English language learners, so students that are in America who immigrated from another country, if they start learning English at a young age, but they already have their mother tongue, normally it takes them about 3 to 5 years to develop what's called basic interpersonal communication skills, or...
Did the people who came up with that as the term realize that it almost acronyms to bitch?
BICS. And that's like regular day-to-day conversation kind of stuff. So maybe they can, like the teacher says, pull out a piece of paper and grab your scissors and do this. The students can do that and they understand. The problem is they don't have cognitive academic language proficiency, which is what's needed to succeed in an academic setting. So students that stay in immersion, even though they can...
Frusk is the easiest language to learn for English speakers? I mean, I feel like I may have heard... I've heard it's like described as like the closest language to... First of all, I mean, there are different kinds of Frusk. Like, which one are we talking about? Are we talking about Nordfrusk, Ostfrusk? You know, there are... so, immediately I have my skepticism there. And easy to learn, I mean, I suppose we're saying easy to learn because because of linguistic similarity, as opposed to easy to learn, which... that it's hard to actually verify that claim because, as you say, resources are kind of hard to come by. So, yeah, I don't know that I would say that. I would say, if we're talking about easy to actually kind of get up to speed in a relatively short time, I would... you know, and take into account all sorts of factors, like, I mean, availability of resources, similarity. I mean, I would tend to think that actually a language like Afrikaans would actually probably be easier for a couple of reasons. For one thing, the grammar doesn't take a lot of getting used to, except for the double negation. And a big one is that translanguaging in Afrikaans is a very common thing. It is totally normal to like throw in English words. So if you in terms of getting up to speed, I would actually say probably Afrikaans would be easier, and even though there aren't quite as many resources. Wait, isn't Bix a character in Andor?
Learn basic conversation things, they tend to develop this gap. Well, they start off with a gap, but the gap never closes for students who stay in immersion. Well, I should say in monolingual immersion, so like only in English immersion. But students who get like dual language immersion, they actually close the gap within like 5 to 7 years. Whereas the students who are only in English immersion and don't have any like mother tongue maintenance, they usually don't ever close the gap. And there have been studies on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated thing, and it has a lot to do with the environment that you're in.
This by Collier and Thomas. They've done, I don't know, multiple studies. Like they have a 2000.
See, this is one thing I appreciate about him, is that he actually he actually reads and cites studies and things like that, which is something that more could be done. Of course, the thing about a lot of studies, especially when it comes to like learning method and stuff, is if you look at the sample size, they're often quite small. In fact, a lot of studies that are used to validate some of the less worthwhile methods that you see in like mainstream education and stuff like that for language learning, you look at the study size and it's like we tested this on 6 people.
2017 paper, but they looked at students across K through 12 and like followed their trajectory by using their like test scores.
Okay, I mean that's already
many students who did English
I mean
only.
Test scores are not a great way of measuring these things, because test taking mostly tests the ability to take tests. But I mean, I guess here, I mean, you have the longitudinal aspect, and you're not okay.
Ended up either failing or dropping out of school. And some people might say like, well, it's a socioeconomic status thing, but
that is true. I mean, with these tests, that is, I mean, like kind of standardized tests that are being imposed and have been since like No Child Left Behind and the Obama era sort of rat program, Race to the Top. The only thing they really measure well the only thing they correlate well with is like number of subsidized lunches in the school. Like there was a study that tested them against like, I think they came up with like 56 other factors to see which one it correlated best with, and it was like number of subsidized lunches. So it's literally testing poverty. So I mean, I think the use of test scores is a huge caveat. And academic outcomes, that can be a useful surrogate for this, but it's not really measuring fluency. Like somebody could have excellent English, for example, if we're talking about somebody who comes from a non-English speaking environment and is, finds themselves in an English speaking academic environment. They could have excellent English, but at the same time they have to drop out for all sorts of other reasons. Or they drop out because school sucks, or whatever. There are all sorts of reasons somebody might drop out. So yeah, I mean, lots of caveats there, but okay.
The studies, they controlled for those factors. So the main factor that determined this was the language used in education. I say this though because when you're learning a language, of course you want to learn it quickly. But the truth of the matter is, some things you'll learn faster than others.
Yeah.
And parts of speaking might be true, but other things not so much. So in the case of Fluency Formula, Spencer, he learned Chinese supposedly in 187 days.
Oh, this is the guy that we were looking at yesterday. Okay, so that ties in nicely. Neat.
To fluency. But I will say, like, even though Chinese is considered a very difficult language, I would argue that speaking other than tones is quite simple in Chinese, because there are no verb conjugations, there's no plural. They have things like measure words, but we have those in English as well. We just don't always use them. So for
yeah, I mean, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, like a lot of other languages use them way more than English does. That is certainly true.
Well, if I said like a gaggle of geese, or a herd of cows, or a murder of crows, those are measure words, and we do have them. We just don't use them as often as you do in Chinese.
Yeah, well, because English has a whole lot of generic measure words. Like, you can say there's a bunch of cows over there, or a bunch of assholes, or a bunch of fake $3 bills. There are lots of words that we have that are generic that work just as well. And in fact, you're probably much less likely to ever hear someone say a murder of crows.
Chinese, even though they have measure words, like for example, one class you say like 一节课, but I have heard Chinese native speakers say 一个课, and 个 is technically the wrong word.
Yeah, 个 is sort of a very generic counting word.
But it's so like commonly used that people will understand you even if you use the wrong measure word. You know, it'd be like English, like I have a pencil, I have a book, I have a, like if you just use 个, you can get by. He has a response to Evil Dia. Evil Dia essentially challenged him. So we're going to look at a few of his responses.
Now, I would say I'm at a C1 level personally. Now, look, you might disagree with me and say that I'm at a B2 level, high B2. I'm not sure. The reason why I said C1 is because according to my understanding, C1 have the ability to, argue and dispute claims and talk about a wide variety of subjects, and not just for like 2 minutes. Like they're able to have fully like hour-long conversations.
The thing about duration is that you can even with a fairly rudimentary knowledge of the language potentially have a long conversation. The question is like how like linguistically deep that conversation is. Like, are you able to use if there's specialized terminology to be used in your discussion, can you use it? If there is like technical literature that is relevant to the discussion, are you able to read it and, learnedly discuss it on the same sort of level that you might in your native language, and stuff like that. Like,
which is something that you're going to see appearing pretty soon on.
So I will say he does mention that based on his understanding, and there's a reason this really hits a chord with me. He has no background.
Yeah, he made that exact point in the video we were looking at yesterday.
At least from what I can tell, I looked him up on LinkedIn, and his girlfriend as well, because they're doing this company together. They have no background in linguistics. They have no background in language education. At least he did. I assume she did as well. But he learned French, he says, for 6 years and Japanese for 3 years. But other than being a student, he has no background in theory, no background in application, none of that. And he claims in another video that he looked online for research regarding how to learn a language, and he stumbled upon the study, and that opened these doors for him, and then he was able to use this method.
Which is not, depending on what the method is, what the study is, that's not facially implausible, but okay.
Which he doesn't say it's a secret, but he kind of implies it by saying it's not talked about in other in language learning circles, and and he calls it his method a lot, which is kind of irritating because it's not his method. I don't know.
What is okay, and this makes me wonder what the method is. The minute you hear somebody saying something is secret is a bit.
There's just a number of issues with this. But I did pull up the CEFR framework for proficiency level.
Okay. Oh, with Chinese equivalents here. So, yeah. So, okay, let's look at C here. C1 is, I can understand extended speech even when it's not clearly structured and when relationships are only implied and not signaled explicitly. I can understand TV programs and films without too much effort. I can understand long and complex factual and literary texts, appreciating distinctions of style. I can understand specialized articles and longer technical instructions, even when they do not relate to my field. I can express myself fluently and spontaneously without much obvious searching for expressions. I can use language flexibly and effectively for social and professional purposes. Clear, detailed descriptions of complex subjects, integrating sub-themes, developing particular points, and rounding off. Yeah, C1, the minute you're in this sort of C range, you're talking about you're talking about a very high skill level there. Not necessarily to the point where you would be confused with a native speaker, but getting there, certainly.
So this is for Chinese. So he claims to be at a C1 level here, which would mean for speaking. So he says he forewent reading and writing. He only focused on listening and speaking. So we're only
and the thing is, with a language, with character languages especially, writing and speech, like all languages, there's a certain level of interaction between writing and speaking, and so that like lack of knowledge of writing will to some extent impoverish your speech. But there's so much that goes on in languages that use characters, around like puns and descriptions and things like that, that any proficiency in a language like Japanese or Chinese, for example, that does not include knowledge of the writing system, that does not include equivalent proficiency in the writing system, gets a big asterisk. Because there's so many expressions. There's so much in talking that has to do, that like it is making reference to characters and to the shape of characters and stuff like that. That is an important part of speech. So yeah, that's already kind of a big red flag for me.
At that. So with speaking, there are two sections here. There's spoken interaction and there's spoken production.
I will say I'm not that flash in spoken and listening in Chinese. I can read it reasonably well, especially if it's traditional characters, because I just know a lot of kanji. And if you could read a lot of kanji and you have a certain amount of semantic flexibility, that you can kind of grasp related meanings from context, realizing that often the meanings are not going to map one-to-one, then you can get pretty far reading. If you, especially if you already have some understanding of if you have some understanding of the way like Chinese grammar works as compared to, say, Japanese or Korean, because they are very different. But, so I have actually I can read things and understand them reasonably well. Less so if it's simplified, just because often the bits that I rely on for understanding are taken out of the simplifications. But, so, yeah. That is a caveat when I talk about Chinese.
With spoken interaction, it says, I can express myself fluently and spontaneously without much obvious searching for expressions. I can use language flexibly and effectively for social and professional purposes.
And the thing about without much obvious searching for expressions, that is kind of a caveat that I would add to that, is that some people, there are lots of reasons people have obvious searching for expressions in some situations. And sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do with language proficiency. Sometimes it has to do with the fact that there is a processing speed mismatch. Like your brain and your mouth are operating on different speeds, and so you get to a point you have like conceptualized what you're going to say, and then you're saying it, and there's like a gap, and you're buffering. I have that happen to me in literally every language sometimes, depending, if it's something that I haven't given a lot of thought to, that I find difficult to talk about or something like that. That's a thing that can happen. Like people, that can happen to like everybody to some extent. So, judging the degree to which something like that relates to language proficiency and to which it relates to things like comfort with the subject matter and stuff like that is complicated sometimes. But
and I can
as a general guideline, it's not bad.
Relate my contributions skillfully to those of other speakers. And then the production part says, I can present clear, detailed descriptions of complex subjects, integrating sub-themes, developing particular points, and rounding off with an appropriate conclusion. So,
yeah, that is, you're talking about a very challenging level there to get to in any language.
Video, in a few of his videos, and in the one response to Evil Dia, he has parts of him having a conversation with a Chinese friend. It's a friend of his girlfriend, who I assume is also his friend, but And I do have a video that I'm going to post as well when I post this video of kind of my response with my partner's response, because my partner's Chinese. So we look at him speaking Chinese. One of the things we notice is he is not good at giving like clear, logical connectors between his ideas. So he like jumps from one idea to the next without bridging the gap, and then like the listener has to kind of guess what he's trying to say, which would suggest his level is lower than he thinks.
I mean, it could also be, I mean, I will say, sometimes that can be a linguistic thing related to his knowledge of Chinese, or it can just also be some people are not really great at integrating their thoughts in a way that makes sense. Like, you know, you can get that in native language speakers as well. I mean, so there are all sorts of things that have to be sort of teased out when you're talking about this.
Yeah, and the thing is even though we can't prove when he started learning, because he claims 187 days, we can still see what his level is now, and it's much lower than what he says it is, which would then bring, you know, draw into question or bring into question everything else that he claims.
That I'd got as far as I did. And then what ended up happening was, because it went so fast, I ended up deciding, you know what, I want to make a course and teach people how to do this, and that's kind of what I did. Now, why?
Okay. I mean, this is interesting because we were watching him speaking Chinese yesterday, and I mean, the way I see it when you're trying to judge these things, the gold standard to me in terms of fluency for a given individual is that their ability to use the target language is like approximating their ability to use whatever language they're most comfortable in. So watching him speak English is interesting because it gives you a bit more of a baseline to compare his Chinese to.
Did I make a course? Well, my background, my actual job is I'm a chief operating officer of an e-commerce company. And so even though I'm really, really busy, my mind is constantly on sort of like online business and that sort of stuff. And my passion for learning languages mixed with online business kind of came together to be like, all right, offer a course, because a lot of time has gone into this, a lot of effort, laying the whole thing out has gone into it. So of course,
God, he talks
I'm
fast.
going to give as much value as I can for free.
I mean, is this on like 1.5 speed, or is this guy just talking extremely fast?
It doesn't make sense to give it for free, because again.
So I get the whole idea of starting a course. I get the whole idea of like selling something. If you have a product or you have something that people want, of course, like I don't see the problem with trying to make money on it. But my issue is
I mean, are you actually selling the thing that you're taking people's money for, really?
he does not have a background in this. He just has, maybe he, like let's say you level it out. Like level 5 is like an expert and level 1 is a layperson. He might be level 1.5, level 2. Like he's nowhere near expert level, but he seems to be claiming that he has this knowledge.
And he's apparently a CFO, and this is, of course, amongst like people who have their like degrees in business and stuff. This is a fundamental problem that a lot of them have. They think they got an MBA, so they think that means that they know how to do everything, kind of thing. And of course, the thing is, even if his method is totally legit and got the exact results he says he got, there's a big gap between using that method on yourself and helping other people to apply it to themselves. That is a really challenging sort of thing. I mean, I know myself. いいダクダク。ダクダクという、という部分は、最初の試みで、分かってたんですね。合ってたんですよね。でも、ゆいと思い込んでたんですよ。私は。ようこそ。今、中国語の講座を売っている男についてのコメンタリー動画を見ています。この人は、187日間で、中国を流暢に話せることになったと、主張して、その、方法なるものを、人に$5,000もの値段で売っているわけなんです。日本のどちらからの方なんですか？ 聞いておけ、そちらさえ、聞いておければね。
going to really benefit you. I think like if you took
ああ、くそ。それで分かったんですね。I forgot to switch the scene.
this class, you probably would learn something because he's also using some things from science, but you can also find the same information online for free.
Yeah.
I guess the benefit of having a course is he would like outline it. But then my question would be, what background does he have in educational like pedagogy or andragogy, which is like educating adults, but like what background does he have in that? Because if he doesn't have one, how do you know he's going to plan a course?
I had never actually heard the term andragogy. Interesting. I've always, yeah, and I will say, as somebody who tries to help people apply methods that I have successfully used, it is actually really challenging to do because you are dealing with somebody else's headspace. It's one thing, you know how you do certain things in your headspace. You have a certain shorthand when dealing with your own mind. When you have to like apply this then to somebody else's, that is challenging. And somebody with like zero background in it just saying, okay, I figured this out for myself, now I'm going to charge people $5,000. I mean, there's a certain arrogance in that actually does not surprise me when you know that he's a CFO.
That is actually like looking for example, like what are your objectives, what are your goals, how are you going to reach them? You know, like did he use Bloom's taxonomy to plan course objectives, or is he just saying the goal is to get fluent? Well,
and what is fluent? That is one of these words that you have to really, really be careful with, because people use it and they mean all sorts of things. They can mean like there are people who it will assume that fluent. They'll talk about fluent and it means you don't have great grammar, you don't have a huge vocabulary, but you can sort of manage to haggle with people at the market and buy things. Or something like that. Or have like a basic discussion, even though your vocabulary isn't all that flash or whatever, and they'll say fluent because you managed to do it without getting stuck too many times and you kind of managed to get your meaning across. And they will say that's fluent. And there are other people who will use that and they mean you can actually you could teach a course in whatever your field of expertise is. Hola, GGM.
Fluency. This is the whole part. Like, if you have a goal in any class, you have to figure out what's my goal and how do we get there. Like, how do we know that we've reached the goal?
Yes.
And so saying like you feel fluent, that's a pretty low goal.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling it because a lot of people over and underestimate their ability in things. There are people, I mean, there's a lot of underestimating that happens. You know, imposter syndrome is a thing. But there are also people who totally overestimate and overstate their ability. Like, they've convinced themselves that whatever level they're on must be a really high level because, you know, they just immediately think very highly of whatever they manage to achieve or something. And there are people who will achieve a whole lot, and because of how hard it was for them to do it, or because they're comparing themselves to others, they will totally understate it, and then it turns out they're way better than they actually say they are. So, I mean, if you're going to say that you can get a certain result, 漢検は受験していますか?
As opposed to like, well, I'm able to do this certain thing in the language at this time and I was successful in doing it. Now that's a more specific goal and it's easier to measure. Another thing that I wanted to address is how he talks about the method. I mentioned it earlier in the video, but he mentions that like his method is new. So I'm going to show you a clip.
But which is already a bit weird. Because if he read a study that detailed this method, then how can it possibly be new? 大丈夫ですよ。日本語で、コメント、ご感想を述べても大丈夫ですよ。私は、ちゃんと分かってますから。 日本語でも中国語でも韓国語でもスペイン語でもこれは多言語チャンネルなんですから多言語でいいですよ
always what happens when something new comes along is that it basically threatens what has the existing thought and existing school of thought towards something.
Oh wow, okay, so this guy, he's an iconoclast. Wow, the griftometer just fucking just absolutely just buried the needle here.
The reality is that before Will Hart came along, people thought, okay, this wasn't possible, right? People accuse, for example, the comprehensible input approach of being like tragically slow, and I get that. But until he came along, people were like, oh, okay.
Okay, Will Hart, that's not a familiar name to me. Will Hart language learning. Who is it? Chunking Chinese. Okay. 僕のアカウント名は中国の料理その感じが好きだからああそうですかああだからあ是啊四本买水ああチキンの料理それは鶏のことですよね成功しすぎ系とかOkay, chunking Chinese. Never heard of it. But, I mean, and chunking immediately makes me think of, like, blowing chunks.
I didn't think you could study that well. And then he...
Like, you're going to be so good at Chinese, you're going to be barfing Chinese. You're going to be chunking it.
Or study that fast, rather. And then he became the benchmark for, like, how fast you could go. Now, obviously, spending as much time as I spent, which is hours a day studying, right? Spending that much time... in the language, of course I'm going to encounter Will Hart as someone who just is a fan.
Spencer is saying that his idea is new and it threatens this like traditional view of language learning. But
then in the same breath he's saying that there is Will Hart, that it's based on Will Hart. I mean, so it isn't new.
The idea is not new. Comprehensible input is one of the first hypotheses.
中華料理名前さんにためにちょっと解説させていただきますけれどもto blow chunks は英語のスラングでゲロを吐くというような意味なんです。チャンキンという教育用語はゲロを連想させるもんです。
It's actually like Stephen Krashen's second language acquisition theory, and he has 5 hypotheses, and one of them is the comprehensible input hypothesis.
Yeah.
That's been around since the 70s. So
I mean, and his first book that really outlines the whole thing as a comprehensive theory has been around since the early 80s.
Just that it's new just shows how much he does not know about language acquisition or about second language acquisition in the field.
Yeah.
There is an opposing hypothesis to this as well called the output hypothesis. And there is evidence to show that we do learn through output, just like there's evidence to show we learn through input, which is why you have like interactionist theories that believe we learn language through interacting, through a mixture.
Yeah, I mean, and it's worth noting that Krashen himself talks about output as a way of eliciting input. I mean, that's right in the book that he wrote in the early 80s on the subject. So far, like, novelty is lacking. This guy thinks he invented the wheel because he never saw a wheel before, basically.
Output and input.
Which again is so. I mean, I'm gonna guess. Not. I mean, I don't know what kind of company. Otherwise, he's like a CFO of something. I'm guessing it's tech, because this is so tech bro pilled. Like, dude, what if I got it? Yeah, I've got the next level idea. This is so disruptive, dude. What if we had cars, right? But they're really long cars, and they would pick people up in one part of town, and they would take money from them, and then they would drop them off in other parts of town, dude. Like, I mean, did I just blow your mind right now? And it's like, motherfucker, you just invented a bus.
Say like you just need input, that is the lowest level of like when I first started getting interested in language learning, I was doing my bachelor's degree in psychology. That was one of the first things I learned was this comprehensible input. But there's so much more to the picture than that, and if it were really that simple, if it were just truly that simple, anyone could just be thrown into an environment, and as long as they understand, they would get super fluent really fast. Like it just the sheer arrogance that I feel like I hear when he says this kind of stuff is a little frustrating to me. And again, I'm not saying he's not allowed to have a course. I'm not saying he's not allowed to sell things. I'm just saying he should be transparent.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that he thinks this stuff is new is already a reason that I would not give him my money to teach me about this stuff. Because clearly he does not know about this stuff well enough to even know what's novel and isn't. That is already a thing. Like, I mean, let me just say, as somebody who has been involved in language learning, like, that has been an absolute obsession of mine since I was little, since, like, the 1980s. I mean, I never really spent a whole lot of time on theory. And so if you would have asked me, and then I started actually looking at like YouTube polyglots, the ones who are legit, because there are some really legit people on YouTube in this space who have learned a whole lot of languages to a really high level. They exist. And I started hearing them talk about how they did it, and they did it in a very similar way to what I did. It was very familiar to me. And and I say this by way of, I have a whole lot of, I would say I have a fair bit of cred when it comes to talking about languages and language learning because I've done a whole lot in it. And I would never say that what I've done is novel. Because I did not know, because I was, very much on the practical end of this, just doing, refining what worked for me, and it just happened to coincide with stuff that had been around as theory since like the 70s, 80s, and I just was unaware of them because I wasn't really looking at theory. Benísimas.
Like openly honest about his level of knowledge on the topic, rather than trying to suggest to people he really knows what he's talking about. Because there were times like, I'm going to show you. So it's
all giving when Dunning met Kruger.
One of his videos. Because I'm getting my doctorate in it, I have a lot to say about it. So I'm just going to read it really quick. This was actually in response to the video that we're looking at now. I'd like to comment on a few things here. I think the issue.
Okay. I'm just going to pause this because I want to look at this. It's a long ass paragraph. Issue of proof is difficult, as you mentioned, because any proof given could be viewed as fabricated. So I take you at word when you say for what you say with how you learned. From a marketing and business standpoint, it's great marketing, but from an ethical and scientific standpoint, it's unprofessional. Declarative, and you really said nothing of substance. Okay, wow. Okay, fucking cooking him.
Proof is difficult, which because you can't go back in time. So if he didn't like record, then there's no way for us to know whether or not he actually started learning then. But the method, as for your method, it really doesn't seem to be something new. There are many, many language learning YouTube channels that sell the same idea as you. They claim to have insider knowledge that can benefit other learners. That should tell you something.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about calling it insider knowledge is what you have to know about, like, input-based methods. Like, Krashen has put all of his scholarly writings out online for free. You go to Stephen Krashen, sdkrashen.com, I think it is. You can get literally everything he's ever published on the subject as a PDF for free. It's right there. Like, I mean, you don't even have to send money to the fucking vultures over at Elsevier to get his stuff. And there's a lot of other stuff like that. There are, like, legit, academics who have been developing the theory in this area, who have YouTube channels, and you can watch their lectures and things like that. There's no fucking secret sauce here. It is just a secret to people who do not know where to start looking. Which is a different thing from something being actually actively, a secret in the sense of being actively kept from people.
Many people say this. Well, how does everyone have insider knowledge that you just can't happen to find? If you go on Google Scholar, or you go on, even on Google, and just type in, like, second language acquisition theory, you have to do reading, but you can find this information for free.
Yeah.
I've seen many people claim to get fluent in 30 days or 3 months or insert any number of here amount of the time, like in 10 days or in 40 days or whatever. People just say this, and it's a selling tactic, because just like if you look at the titles of videos, it'll say like get fluent fast, and fast will be like all capital letters. It's because they know you're going to click on it, and they know you're going to want to see it, and they might even be able to sell a course that way. The method of not...
Yeah, I mean... Aus Outer Banks de Carolina do Norte.
Not memorizing words, of getting input, etc., is not new at all. Which is also weird because he talks...
I mean, I will say, in this area, it is easy for it to feel new, because as long as it's been around, I mean, it's been around a little bit longer than I've been around, and literally at no point in my schooling, I mean, I took language courses in school, lots of them, in fact, and literally none of them integrated any of the insights of, like, Krashen's work and the work that follows on him into the teaching method. It was completely just sort of the skills-based approach. Okay, we're going to learn conjugations and stuff. Pretty much all of it was that. So it was useless in that sense. I didn't really get a whole lot out of it. If anything, it turned me on to, like, resources sometimes that were themselves much more useful to me in my language learning, but the actual, like, teaching methods were very much this sort of, okay, we're going to conjugate stuff now. Where I actually, so to a great extent, I was developing my approaches on my own, even with languages that I was learning in school, because I was finding that's the approaches that people had learned, people were taught to use to teach, which is a very awkward sentence, I know, were not approaches that I was getting much out of, but they would occasionally, like, point in the direction of resources and stuff, and there was, there were bits of it that were useful because it was just, like, talking and stuff, but it's really... I mean, it's easy to think that it's like some sort of secret sauce as a result of that. But at the same time, it has been around for a long time.
He talks negatively in other areas, like on his school page and like in other videos. He talks negatively of using flashcards, but then in his school page, he also says using flashcards with spaced repetition to learn words.
Yeah, I mean, and in fact, in the thing we watched yesterday, he talks about how important Anki was to his method, to his learning.
So it's like, I don't know. It's just a mixture of, like, contradictory information. In fact, the earliest studies in second language acquisitions, which was actually almost 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, was based on the idea. So Krashen, that's like the researcher that people refer to when they talk about comprehensible input, was one of the earliest researchers during that time. And I just said, while some naysayers may be going against you because your method challenges traditional language learning norms, I'm not in disbelief for that reason. My biggest issue is how you present the information, which is what I'm bringing here. So I'm going to skip some of this because you can pause the video and read it if you want. I just don't want to read the whole thing. So, in fact, you should be studied as a case because your claims go beyond what has been generally found to be true in the literature on second language learning, which is true. If you learn Chinese to a C1 level, or even like B2 or anything, even within a year time, like let's not say his 187 days, let's just say a year time from when he made the video. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and a C1 level that does not involve literacy as well, it would be absolutely wild.
Like, if you really truly got to C1 fluency, which I don't think he is C1 fluency, but if he did, he should be studied because the majority of people don't do that. After all, it is possible that you are an exception to the rule and your method will not help others. So maybe he's like a language learning savant or something, and then he's trying to sell this to people. If it's an atypical thing that most people can't do, it would be dishonest to sell it. And I'm not saying that people won't learn that way, but the conjecture is not implausible. Like maybe they won't.
And
if
of
you
course, a big part of this is the claim of the level that he reached in that amount of time. Like, you could say, you know, like, assuming that it was true, and even assuming that he was just unusually fast, or something like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that there wouldn't be some value in the method, but people might otherwise be learning it much slower, or something like that. But still,
are the exception to the rule, you would be making money on the misfortune of others, which is an unethical thing to do. And I've seen in my experience as a language educator in China.
I mean, making money on the misfortune of others is kind of just how capitalism works, which I mean is not saying that it's unethical. It's why capitalism is kind of an unethical way of running a society, actually.
I've been in China for 10 years, almost 10, I think 9.5. This is something that many companies do here. So they claim to have this like secret method or insider knowledge, but they all use the same method. And in fact, in China, it's quite outdated. They don't update their methods at all. Because as a person learning in my doctorate, second language instruction, when I use certain methods, they think that it's completely wrong. Why would I do that? That's not the go-to method. Like, I use translanguaging in class. There's a lot of research showing translanguaging helps learners.
Yeah.
And even, like I said,
I mean, and there's some languages that just do it by default. I mean, I mentioned Afrikaans. I mean, Hindi, I mean, there's a whole, like, translanguage Hindi called Hinglish. But, I mean, it's quite normal, and there are languages where it's just quite normal to just sort of throw in words from another language. They're not really considered part of the language, but they're considered part of, like, legitimately, you know, acceptable speech in the language.
Research by Collier and Thomas that showed dual language immersion, so using, like, learning both your mother tongue and English, or the second language, actually benefits your second language learning.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Can do the same thing. But because they don't read the research, they think it can't, so then they think, well, that's a bad idea. But I've had plenty of times where my students, like, I used to teach in a training center, and my students easily surpassed, like, my 3-year-olds easily surpassed the 6-year-olds English level because I used translanguaging. So that means we could talk about more complicated topics, and I used more English vocabulary. It's the same thing if you're learning a second language.
And that means that is another way of making input comprehensible fundamentally as well.
You use translanguaging, like, basically, let's say I'm learning Chinese as an English native speaker, and I want to say something in Chinese, but I don't know the word to say it. I can try to formulate a Chinese sentence and insert the English word into the sentence. By doing that, I've now produced more Chinese than I would have, because if I don't know how to say it, I'm not going to say anything at all. That's kind of the idea behind translanguaging.
Yeah, and the input you would get back might actually be comprehensible in a way that also helps supplement your vocabulary in those ways.
Pedagogically. In reference to those businesses, I say those customers do end up learning, but they don't learn very much. But because they learn, they might think that the method works. And then they might even say, I learned something, therefore it works. Whereas, like...
And the other thing is, it's the only method they likely have learned from. And so they don't have a comparative perspective. They just have the fact that they did get a result with this method that they did use. And so, therefore, they don't realize that actually they could possibly have gotten much better results with methods that they could not, that they did not use.
Concern as a professional is not what works, it's what is effective. And something effective would give you the best outcome you can get. So if we're using immersion as a method and you learn something and we compare that to, like, a translingual method, if you learn more with translanguaging, why would you avoid it? Why would you say that's not good, you need to do all immersion? Just like these ideas of, like, stop translating in your head and stuff. It's not a thing. Like, when you're translating in your head...
and of course there it depends totally. Because if we're saying that stop translating in your head is the outcome of a method, I think that's true. I think that is the outcome of a good method. Because at a certain point, you won't need to. But there are certain points where maybe, at a certain point, maybe it's useful to you. I mean, that is the thing about a lot of these sort of clickbaity things that you will see a lot in language YouTube. Because they'll say... stop translating in your head. Okay, but is that your outcome, or are you saying just stop doing it? is that the outcome that you won't need to do that anymore, which I think is a good outcome. If you can just interact within whatever your target language is, or are you saying shut that down completely right now, and we're going to learn without it, and maybe you've got a method where that is better than that, okay, or maybe that is actually going to make it more difficult in some respects because it's going to limit the ability, of a person to produce at least some, produce some kind of initiative for interaction in the language.
Doing is your brain is trying to use old knowledge to understand new concepts. That's how all learning works. It's weird that for some reason when we learn a language we can't do that. Imagine if you learn math and I told you we can't use any English.
I mean, it is worth noting, in many ways, human language is just different in a lot of respects.
We're only going to speak in numbers. And I'm going to have to develop some type of new language because I can't use English to say the number 7. Right? So maybe I use my hands, and you would learn quite slowly, right? It's the same idea. One only needs to read studies on self-reporting, and they will soon find that self-reported data is often oblivious to a number of issues, one of them being that participants do not know what they do not know. So participants can't tell you, oh, this was useful, but here are all the problems, because of...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know as much as you know, and unless you have enough experience in these things that you know that there are things that exist that you are not able to completely integrate or whatever, you're going to be comparing the amount that you learned to the amount that you learned. And obviously that's going to seem like a full vessel, potentially, unless you have enough extrinsic knowledge to be able to say, there's a whole universe of stuff out there that I probably don't know. Which can happen in a lot of ways. If you just know other languages already and you've had the experience, then you can have more of a basis for comparison. But yeah.
They are not aware of the problems, they're not going to be able to tell you what they are. But it's the same thing from the teacher's perspective. If you don't know things...
I mean, it's like somebody thinking that they speak great Japanese because everywhere they go in Japan, people are like, Nihongo jouzu desu ne! And it's like, no, that's not what that means, really. そんな意味ね、そんな意味じゃねえよ。そんな意味で言ったんじゃねえよ。全く。
Can't tell your client what they need to know because you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So when you say things like learn this in 187 days or do this and do that, there's too many issues that you're not aware of when you're trying to sell this, and that's the problem I have. After I give all of this, his only response is very interesting analysis. Thanks for the comment.
Yeah, that's nothing. I mean, that already, it's like, did he not understand any of that? Which is entirely possible because, again, not his field. He does not seem to demonstrate a whole lot of interest in understanding the field that he is trying to make money in. Which, again, I mean, so fucking MBA pilled. But I just noticed the time. It is time for me to wrap it up and do something about maybe dinner eatings. So, thank you to everyone who joined in. ご視聴どうもありがとうございました。I will be back next week at 4:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Friday, and I hope to see you there. Have a good evening, and see you next week.